know what our problems are. We've run elections back to back. And I think a major challenge is, you know, those who are experienced in the field, who have been involved for the years, you know, are they part of the team today that have planned this particular one? Because we need to look at those things. They're members of the chair of different committees, Amina Zakari and Shomemo, who are people who have been in the system for quite a while. Now, I don't know if they're part of this, but we shouldn't have this kind of problem. When you know you live in a country where you are constrained by certain things.
Well, we've had this problem since 2011.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The fact that we've had it since 2011, this is 2019, 7 years after. Are you saying Nigerians don't have what it takes to plan? You understand, to sort these issues? It's clear. That's what it's saying, that we have to be able to look at the scenario. So if there was fire, what do we do? If you have flight issues, what are the options? When you plan, those are the things you look at. You know, but you don't allow it get to the day of the... I mean, he's been very consistent, and it makes me proud to see him all the while saying, yes, you know, we will continue. We will not postpone. We will not postpone. We will not postpone.
So how did you feel when you heard it at 3 a.m.?
Quite frankly, to be honest, I was talking to someone in the United States about 2 a.m. And I remember the last thing I said. I sent a message to a friend of mine. I said, don't worry about it. You know, elections will hold. So you can imagine 2:30 to bed and wake up. You understand? And you're hearing that. It was like I was dreaming. You know, so it's not something I believe that Nigerians have taken well, because there are two sides to it. There are people who have moved. I mean, I'm even of the opinion that why didn't we even give Nigerians a public holiday on Friday to allow people even move from one location to the next location? But for those who have even tried to do so, you know, for instance, we have people who have come from diaspora, who have come to Nigeria. Over 20 people I know who have come to Nigeria to vote. One in particular, a young lady who left a 5-month-old child in the UK just to come to Nigeria to vote.
Will they wait?
That's the problem. They have to go back. So what's going to happen to their votes? So the problem is immense. Look at the pictures of the national ad hoc staff, the NYSC. We don't do that. We don't. This is not something, you know, we're not, Nigerians excel in everything they do here and everywhere in the world. We should not have a problem like this today. It's very
You're mentioning something that was mentioned earlier on, by, as I said, when Nigerians are here, they tend to have issues. But take the same Nigerians anywhere else, even in Somalia, that I think the example he gave was that you take a Nigerian policeman to Somalia, he will excel. Whereas you bring him back here, which is better than Somalia, he have problems. Now, GT Oguye, I saw you not particularly, not particularly impressed either way. Is it that you didn't hear anything in this last 2 hours or more that the INEC chairman spent patiently taking people through their view of what it is that transpired, and equally importantly, their plan to, or their assurances that they hope to have it worked out by this time next Saturday? You from your body language.
No, I listened carefully, but I wasn't persuaded by the excuses that the INEC chairman was painfully and laboriously given. All that he explained were things that could have been foreseen, indeed were foreseen. And, you know, I wouldn't even go as far as Jide went when he traveled to the United States, 1812, 1864, 1944, 2011, 2015. Those examples were there. And so this INEC chairman and his INEC should have told themselves before now, we won't allow Nigerians go through this again. So if they gave themselves those assurances, now how far did it pan out? I listened to everything, talked about logistics.
You heard him talk about sabotage and how they didn't expect that. And so
paragraph 7, paragraph 8, paragraph 9, 12 spoke about all those, you know, and how they were trying to grapple with the problem. Yes, I heard all that. But I'm saying that those are just excuses, and I think that Nigerians justifiably are angry at what has happened. We've been portrayed, as we usually portrayed by our institutions, as people who cannot put their acts together. And it's painful.
Yes, it is.
In a world that in some places are racialized. They do these things, but for me, I look at where the black man should be in the sun. We're people of color. I never forget that. And I think that our processes, our acts, our statecraft even, should be elevated. We've been having elections in this country, for years, in spite of the military interregnum we've had. And I thought that this ought not to have happened. But now this has happened. General Abu Salami was saying that inviting Nigerians should have trust in INEC again. I won't go that far. I think that Nigerians should hope that INEC will deliver.
Well, the INEC chairman said he will always be open, he will always be transparent, and INEC will always be responsible.
Well, it's an assurance.
It's giving assurances, but assurances alone will not do the magic, as we've seen. Talking about assurances, because he was talking about, he's always proud of the INEC chairman, giving assurances and all that. That is a spectacle to behold. And while he was saying that, I was chuckling a little bit. That's what you call laughing. Yes. Because I just recalled that Maurice Iwu, in 2007, that famous footage was telling Nigerians, even if it is the last thing I will do on earth, I will ensure that with 4 states, I will ensure that there's free and fair election in this country. And that election was a gungun of an election.
That's interesting language.
So you can give assurances, but assurances alone, as I said,
do not make.
I think that this INEC chairman and his INEC should go back to the drawing board, because this is very significant.
We have just 1 week for this drawing board.
Exactly. This is very significant. From what I see, and I'm not trying to sow seeds of discord within INEC, I believe that there's a little bit of over-centralization in INEC activities this time around. I believe that if there was diffusion of responsibility, I mean, we've had something as we have to wait for tags to be brought from Abuja. So why do you need to centralize, the making of tags, for example? So I think that we've had some problem. We talked about 193 elections, runoff elections, state elections they've conducted. But even those elections weren't without their difficulties. For example, Kogi election, one-off election, state election, Osun election, that had to start with all the concentration of all the security forces and all that. Now, look at the entire country. So if we had a problem with one state, one-off, and when I'm talking about one-off, that means it wasn't a general election. The Osun state election was a gubernatorial election, only a governorship election. So if we had problem with that, we can then imagine that we could have problems nationally. And so the INEC chairman, therefore, and INEC ought to have foreseen all this and generated sufficient scenarios as has been said.
I need to put you on pause and go to Abuja. The only lady in today's panel, well, apart from Ijoma, Miriam Yakub, who is the convener of the Voters Union. Now, I'm wondering, first, what was your first reaction when you heard about the postponement earlier on today? And secondly, if you listened to the INEC chairman later in the day, when he then offered a more detailed explanation for what transpired and for what happened, were you convinced that ultimately, at the end of the day, we may have cause to understand why this postponement was necessary and why we ought to wait until next Saturday to vote?
Well, when I first heard the news, I was so disappointed. I was, I couldn't understand it. But before now, I had told some people, from my own going into INEC office, trying to manage the people that we are going to send out through the INEC for observation, looking at the things going up and down in the INEC. I stayed here, I think, on Monday or Wednesday till 9 p.m., and I could see chaos, confusion. People are not doing what they're supposed to do. Everything was all over the place. I could tell that this is going to go nowhere. And again, listening to the chairman, which I have respect for him because I know he is doing his best. He works, you know, he has the capacity. We have written a letter to him for collaboration and courtesy visit. He does not allow a file or any document to stay on his table overnight, no matter how close to closing hour before the document gets to him. But he signed that document within few minutes, but it took us more than 8 months for them for the staff to look at it. So there is a weakness in the management. There is a, you know, there is a integrity gap. He is there talking and saying all of this stuff for himself. How about all the other people he's working with? It is a team. These people need to be looked at. And again, for all the explanation, I don't buy it. I am sorry to say, we know why, because there's possibility of everything that he has said to happen again. So what are we going to do? Are we going to postpone it again? We should have gone through this. Calling for this briefing today, I think is the first thing we should have done like 3 days ago. When you start looking at there's possibility, things are not coming in order, there is weather delay, there is, you know, at least as it's coming in, you are briefing the people. Leadership is not all about your own decision. It's about carrying the people, the followers along. We were just in dark only because I have the opportunity to go in and out. I could sense that this thing is going out of hand. It's not the preparation that's supposed to be on the ground is not there. This is number one. Then, please, I am coming from the lowest of the low people perspective. If you listen to him explaining and those who have asked questions, they are all talking about the politicians, like the political party chairman was focusing on the money the politicians have spent and all this, all that. How about us, the people, the ordinary people, the Meruas, you know, Almajiris, how that has voters card? How about the women, the market women, the ordinary people? They have not much money. It is as hard as it is already. You send people to go and vote, they travel miles, they pay money, and you come back here to come and tell us that you have canceled the election. No, we need to start taking ourselves seriously before the world. We cannot keep making excuses. Everything he has said is an excuse that is available that we can make tomorrow.
Okay,
so,
Ms. Yakubu, let me just put you on pause so that I can speak to Mr. Nwangu there. I know that Yaga Africa has done quite a bit in terms of monitoring and trying to generate content this period. Are you any more reassured listening to the INEC chairman?
Well, thank you very much. It doesn't have to do with his reassurance. It has to do more with my understanding that we are currently in a sort of national, what I call a national electoral emergency situation. And what that means to me is that as citizens, we need to lift ourselves above the current despair, above the current despondency, and see how we can ensure that this prolonged labor eventually does not lead to a miscarriage. And what that then means is that I think that citizen groups and organizations will need to really, really oversight this INEC in the next 1 week. When you have an emergency, and if you take a picture of, say, when you say you have a Hurricane Katrina or those kind of things that you normally will come as an emergency or such, you will see that the institutions that are responsible for dealing with those issues will have to put citizens on almost a daily, day-to-day engagement briefing, telling us where we are. In this next 1 week, citizens will need to engage more INEC in a more direct, in a more engaging manner. And for me, that is what is critical. INEC has postponed this election. Whether you call it rescheduling or postponement, it's postponed. The whole disappointment that we feel, we deployed about over 3,888 observers. We have data clerks trained. We have international observers who have come in, students from Auburn University who came into the country. Those paces are there. The embarrassment is there for all of us. But we need to lift ourselves above it. That's the sense from which I engage the next 1 week. And what that therefore means is that citizen groups and institutions that not just, when we focus a lot of attention, there could be other disasters waiting to happen. What is the preparation of the security agencies? Now that we know that assurances are not enough, are we going to engage other stakeholders who have something as well to contribute to ensuring that we have peaceful, credible elections? We need to touch those institutions right now and see how well prepared they are and what they are going to deliver, how they are going to contribute to delivering for the Nigerian people.
Okay, I'll come back to you to ask you how you're going to manage everybody that you deployed from your own end. But then looking at what Mariam Yakub was talking about the voters, let's see what the fallout could be or might be, the fallout of this postponement on voter apathy or perhaps disinterest in the process. And I know, Jide, you have a lot that you've prepared. So, yeah.
Yes, there is a lot, but especially when we look at the cost to 5 categories, the cost to the government, the cost and the impact on corporate organizations and businesses, the cost and importance of this cancellation to the common man. What are the costs to even political parties? Does this give the APC or the PDP an advantage? We need to consider that. And finally, the most important, what are the costs and consequences of this cancellation to voters? But before we talk about that, there are 3 things Mr. Ogunye had mentioned that I want to quickly share some light on. I talked about the 2007 elections. Ijoma, I've been studying elections in Africa, in all the 54 countries in Africa, and looking at that data for over 10 decades. 10 decades worth of data. Mr. Ogunye talked about the 2007 elections in Nigeria. Ladi, it will be easier for the Pope to marry than for you to find the accurate results, state by state, of the 2007 elections in Nigeria. You heard me right. So we need to also ask
Perhaps no reference to the Pope, because we could have some sensitive viewers out there, so perhaps a different example. Yeah, I know why I'm saying what I'm saying.
I agree with you. Perhaps we could also say that it would be easier for you to find an ant swallowing an elephant.
That's okay.
I think you prefer that. Yes, I think you're Catholic too.
But
again, with all respect to all religions, we need to ask ourselves, where are the state-by-state results, the accurate state-by-state results of the 2007 presidential elections? That's one. The second thing is over-centralization. You know, over 2 centuries ago, the founder of the Scottish School of Common Sense, Thomas Reid, had said, a chain is as strong as its common link, as its weakest link. And so INEC needs to ask itself, is our weakest link operations, logistics? But here's why we should be concerned. INEC is asking that question today. That question should have been asked several years ago. Now, the third thing is about excuses. It makes it look like it's difficult to conduct an election for 84 million registered Nigerians. You know, the interesting thing is, May 25, 1961, the then President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, had made a declaration that the United States will put a man on the moon. 1961, the declaration was that before the end of the decade, the United States will place a man on the moon.
But after the declaration, they then took action to ensure
exactly, action was taken. He handed over to President Lyndon Johnson, who continued with it. Eventually, they achieved it. Here's why this is important. It seems that it was easier for the United States to keep its promise of putting a man on the moon than for our own electoral body to organize elections for just 84 million people. And again...
I'm sorry, there are a number of people who, and I'm going to say this in such a way that I'll leave you to think about it a little while we go on break, then when we come back, you'll respond. Nigeria has 84 million viewers. I was giving this example a few days ago. I have 84 million viewers. A country like, which also conducts general elections, has anything like 10 times that number
over 1 billion
of voters. And yet, like clockwork, not that there are no problems. There are always problems. In fact, they also have problems exacerbated by natural disasters, monsoons, bad roads, things like that. Now, yet they conduct elections. So I want you to think about it, especially with the data you have studied over the last 10 decades. And with you, Mr. Oguye, and indeed the rest of our panelists, why is our own different? And by that, I mean the Nigerian factor. That's after this break.